Come along with us. Let's play. Come on.
Wanna be like Rachel? She's as black as she wants to be. Can't resist her show. You can't see what's inside of me. It's not blackface. It's not.
She's black. Now she's white. Now she's black again. No, she's trans black.
She's as black as she wants to be.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Artist Talk series. It's been since January, the last time I was in conversation with artist Zara Hushar and curator Giselle Munoz. So after 10 months, it's glad to be back. I've been very busy. If you did not know, I have opened up a project space in downtown Sacramento at 1020 16th Street. And we are today going to be talking with the artist of the second exhibition in that space, Beth Consetta Rubel. And you just see, normally I do these talks, right? And there's a song. We play a song that the artist shares with me. But we started with a commercial that is currently playing in the gallery space. And we'll have more conversation about that work. I'm sure a lot of you are watching that. Like, what am I watching if you did not come into the exhibition? So we'll give more context around that. I am really happy to be here with you all again. I think part of my practice is constantly being in conversation with artists through exhibitions, through critical discourse, and now with this project space, it is my curatorial intervention. So as always, I want to remind us all that we are on Native land, no matter where you are watching this YouTube video, most likely you are standing on unceded traditional Native land. So I always want to make that moment, not necessarily land acknowledgement, but to acknowledge the land. So let's talk, let's get straight into it. I'm really excited to have this conversation with Beth. Beth is a mixed media visual artist raised in Texas, currently living and working in Sacramento, California. She holds a BFA from University of Texas in painting and drawing. Her work has been featured in Political magazine, permanently installed at Facebook headquarters, and also at the Native in Austin, Texas. Her work is in the permanent collection of UC Davis Health and has been exhibited at the Center for Art of African Diaspora at University of Texas in Austin, Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Root Division, Crocker Art Museum, among many others. Rubel is a lead muralist at the Community Murals Sacramento, an innovative pilot program funded by the City of Sacramento and administrated by the Office of Arts and Culture, which that program was designed to elevate the voices of neighborhoods across each of Sacramento districts. And I'm really excited to share that, talk about that work today with Beth as well. So welcome, Beth.
Hey.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Thanks for having me. Hey.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I'm honored.
Yes. Yeah. I want to just give some background and let everyone know. So Beth and I started installing this show the end of September. And we had this, I mean, the install, right? Beth was like this crazy install, but it was so much fun. And before we jump into it, I just want to say thank you for your work and practice, because I think it's this gallery space is this, your work is this conduit through the gallery space to educate, right? So many people are coming into the space and learning. So I'm excited to share with everyone watching today, if they're not in Sacramento, to kind of give them a sneak peek into the exhibition profile, but also into your practice. So let's start. I think I want to start with the title profile, right? Which was, I think you do such an amazing job at profiling artists, right? We think about Adrienne Armstrong, who's an amazing artist, who you know. I think about Ebony Ava Harper, who is a trans activist in Sacramento, and then thinking about like Mike Brown, right? And kind of these victims of police brutality. So you do this amazing job at profiling through your beautiful portraiture. But I would like to talk about you, and I want people to kind of hear more about who you are and what profile, your profile, who you are, and how you come to us today.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the awesome introduction. and for
Yes.
facilitating my work in your gallery. It's like every attention to detail is there, and it's exactly how I've always wanted it to be seen, honestly. So, but
Yes.
yeah, a little bit about me. I'm from Texas. I grew up in Texas. I moved to Sacramento about 5 years ago. Those are my parents. My mother is holding me there on the left. She's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I don't have very many photos of both of my parents together. So like that's like one of like
Mhm.
maybe three. But yeah, I grew up in Texas. They met in Chicago. My mom is originally so my family's from Chicago and Mississippi on my mom's side, and on my dad's side, he's Italian and Polish. And I never met anyone from his family except for his father one time when I was at the age 4, which is that little self portrait that I did. But it's really so I'm in Texas. I'm living in Texas at this point. I'm 4 years old, and my little brother was just born at that point. And I never had any interaction with any of my dad's side, my white side, until my brother was born. And he came out very pale looking. And that was the first time that my parents sat me down and had a conversation with these are the reasons why he doesn't want anything to do with you and your mother. And so like that was like the first time I really started like start hearing about like racism and colorism. And even though I didn't fully understand it, but it was like a core memory, I suppose to say, of being rejected by my dad's side of the family.
Mm.
So from where I'm from, being from a small town in Texas, like very rural, more thousand people at times, you know, to the only interactions I would have with my mom's side of the family would be during like family reunions in Mississippi and Chicago and North Carolina. And then that's when I
Mm.
really felt truly accepted. So,
Mm.
and also like having a Black mother and my grandmother, it was someone that's very influential in my life and inspiring.
Mm.
At a very young age, they kind of prepared me for because my grandmother, she's from Mississippi. She had experienced a lot of colorism as well, and so like my mother and my grandmother both
Mm.
kind of like prepared me for these conversations at a very young age. And so I identify as Black. I am a biracial Black queer woman. I identify as Black, and um, that influences
Yeah.
my work. My work is about identity and
Right.
advocacy. And
When I think of that intersection, right? I did some art notes I posted today, and it was this, thinking about identity and the intersection of it, right? And like you said, you come as a Black biracial woman, as a queer woman, as a woman. There's all these intersections, and I love how that shows up in your work. But you also, it's very research based, right? So you're looking at for your own family, right? You're looking at family photos and kind of this dynamic of race. And like I'm showing some photos here, and there's this obviously you grow up, like you said, 4 years old. And I think you more than so than most people, right? When you have, you're looking at your dad, you're looking at your mom, and you're like, okay, wait, how do I fit in this kind of this experience? So I really love that, you're thinking about that through your work as you're highlighting other Black folks, right? So in those conversations come up, we're asking people how they identify. And what I always resonate with is what you said, your experience in college, right? At UT Austin, and how you weren't Black enough. And I'm really curious how that, one, if you can go into a bit about that conversation, and then how that kind of propelled you into this work, and were you doing that work before? So I would really like to, for folks that don't know, kind of you hearing that you're not Black enough, to hear that experience.
yeah, that's a really good question. And in college, I definitely had that experience where, well, there weren't. First of all, I was like one of the one student in the Black, like the one Black student in the whole art department. I didn't have any professors that were of color, so it was very like it was what it was at the time.
Mm.
But before I even went to college, I was already kind of like used to getting those questions before people ask my name. So it was like I was already used to that. So like that
Mm.
was something that didn't bother me so much. But it wasn't until I got to college, and it's like you go into a critique and people, my the people that my peers, right? Their technical ability is what's being critiqued. It was never about my technical ability. It was just always like,
Mm.
what are you like? You have no right to have an opinion in this type of situation coming from my white professors who never even questioned to get to know me whatsoever. And so
Wow.
that just kept happening. And it's like I always used art as like a therapeutic tool, and so like I was like you were saying, as I'm interviewing people, I'm also kind of like healing myself too, in a way. And it's
Yeah.
like very therapeutic. And so, like, I did start the paper bag test in college as a direct response to what one professor, but it was many, but one professor who was saying that, I'm not black enough to create portraits of black people. And so then, there was like a moment where I felt pretty disheartened. And I was just like, well, am I just supposed to paint racially ambiguous people all the time? Like, all the time? I mean, yes. I mean, it's just so nuanced. And so really it just like made me start looking and researching into tests that ascertain race and blackness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really where I stumbled upon, well, I had heard about the paper bag test before from my grandma and my great grandma. And so I had already knew about it, but it was like in addition to that, I started researching about the South Africa pencil test, the blue vein test. There's like all of these ridiculous tests rooted in white supremacy that ascertain blackness. And so I just started, the first portrait I did was of Obama eating the ice cream cone on a paper bag, because at the time he was under scrutiny. The tea bag party was like doing the whole birth certificate, that whole thing was going down. So that was like happening when I was in college too. And so like that was, it kind of made sense. So I did that. I got really great response from it and did shut my professors up in that regard. And then I was more interested in, since I was a very shy, introverted child growing up, I always wanted that like connection with people. And so like that desire really pushed me into wanting to like interview people that might have the same experience. And that really got me to learn more about other people's experience. It opened my mind. I thought, yeah, so it's like kind of full circle.
Well, and it's so important because as I'm in the gallery and people are coming in, and for those that don't know about the paper bag test, the paper bag test was used literally. A paper bag was put up to someone's face to see if they were, and there was HBCUs, right? There's fraternity sororities, there were social clubs, the Jack and Jill clubs, very social thing that Black people are doing to others, right? So there's this someone saying that you're too Black, right? And kind of that, and I love that you took that kind of that information from the professor, which I feel like so many Black, as someone that studies art history, right? Like I've heard that. I'm not an artist, but there's still professors, I'm sure, telling Black artists, like that but I think it's empowering that you're able to kind of reclaim that history. So as people come in, Black and non-Black, they learn about, I didn't realize, I knew about the paper bag test too, right? But I didn't know how many people just didn't know about that. It's not used anymore. I always tell people, I always make sure it's not used, but it's still like, colorism, which we're talking about through the work in the face and what you talk about, and, proximity to whiteness, right? And all of these things that come up in your work, which I believe is so powerful, and it always resonates. And I think that's what people are shocked to always learn, that this isn't new work, right? This isn't 2023 work. This is work that you've been doing for many years and kind of exploring this. And I love, like you said, it's research informed, and that you're talking, and we'll show, some of the video that you're, actually talking to some of your sitters and asking them about their identity. And there's this, interconnectedness with Black people. And I think that's why I really love kind of my intervention of the space was putting it almost like in a salon wall, because this is what our family looks like, right? I have aunts that are really light skinned. I have, cousins darker than me, and we're all blood related, which goes back to, colonial slavery and rape and all these things. But I think it's just so people like leave the exhibition so moved by learning this history, which is really emotional work, right? You're doing like some heavy work. So I appreciate that. And also I love that you have this practice from quite a few artists that I love, which is this satirical practice, right? And I think of like Robert Colescott here. And if you're familiar with Robert Colescott, if you just Google his work, and you'll see, that these images, these very intense satirical images. But I think about the same thing that you're doing, right? Your exploration of historical narratives, thinking about race and identity and intersectionality, and political and social commentary, personal expression. And also we see that in Kara Walker's work, right? So you're in this line doing this work with with Black artists that are continuing, and you know, and it's one of those things that these are artists also that get critiqued and really highly criticized by the Black community. So I'm curious if that has, if doing this work, and I'm going to show some great images that I just have recently seen. But I am curious, have you gotten any kind of negative feedback? There was one person in the gallery that came in, a Black person. They're like, "Oh, it feels like you're airing our laundry," like because it was Black people doing the paper bag to other Black people. So I'm curious if you, and maybe I'll think about that question. Just think about it. I want to show the viewers this work.
Oh, God.
Right, and I want to just kind of, and there's quite a few works. So I want to just show the still image, and then I'm going to play it here. Yeah, so that is, I mean, genius work, right? I love it. And one, can you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at, and then kind of going back to that question. But what are we looking at?
Yes. So this is a installation piece that is so I was creating this around the time that the Bill Cosby and the Me Too movement were really like, it was like every day. It was like very much a response to the news and pop culture that was happening at that moment. And so it was to show, so like as every day I'm watching, I'm also working, and it's very emotionally draining to like watch these Bill Cosby rape trials and everything. And so while that was happening, Bill O'Reilly, something comes up about with him doing it, and then all these other, this is like everyone's getting called out, and I just wanted to have that conversation of like, that's why Bill O'Reilly, like, so that whole piece is basically like a toy theater pop-up book that is like, it's on a motor that continuously animates the work. So there's like 5 things moving at once. What you saw the video of was a prototype. So this actual big piece was like an installation at the George Washington Carver Museum, and it was more so like a response to how the media was presenting Bill O'Reilly and comparing it to the Bill Cosby case. And it was just like very nuanced for me. And I think everyone at the time kind of felt some type of way strongly about it. And so I really wanted to spark that conversation about, you know, and I also had Woody Allen like pop out of a potted plant in the background, you know, like all of these, like it was just like how they're like sneaky and get away with it. And it's just like, I just wanted to really, it was just something that was really weighing heavy on my mind. And so like that show, the George Washington Carver Museum, was specifically about like sensationalized pop culture and news. And so like that piece was there. I've only showed that one time because it's very complicated to move, because like I said, the motor is made out of bicycle gears and it's very analog. You plug it into a wall, and it was like, it's like a toy theater where it's like layered, like different scenes. And so there's depth to it. And so it's like very difficult to move from Texas to California with that piece in its entirety. So like, that's why I never showed that one again. And the other work I had in that show was the Rachel Dolezal installation, which was the first time I had ever shown that work. So like, that was like the 2 things that were like really at the peak that I was noticing, in addition to like all the police brutality incidences. So that's why that show particularly had like portraits of Mike Brown, and then I had like the Rachel Dolezal installation, and then I had this Bill Cosby piece. And I do have a formula for the paper bag test work, right? Like where I'm interviewing people, and then I'm doing a photo shoot, and then I'm doing their portrait and thinking about the conversations that we had. And so like that show was really the first time that I introduced kind of like this satirical work, kind of like this work I don't really know if I should show people type of thing. And it's also leaning more into like sculpture and animation and paper engineering. And so like, that's really what that work is about. And to answer your question, I have gotten surprisingly really amazing feedback from Black people, from like really most people regarding the paper bag test. I mean, of course, there are a handful of like people that have said comments, but they have not been Black or African American. in reference to the paper bag test. And so I think that that work has been shown so many times, and sometimes people don't know that I'm the artist. So, and I'm like, I guess I'm like a racial chameleon. They don't even know that I'm there. I don't know. I don't even know. And so like I hear things and then I introduce myself. And so sometimes you do see that shift of like, oh, you are the artist. Okay. And then we have a conversation face to face, and then it's really valuable. I really am grateful for those moments because it's so nuanced, and it still ends up being a very positive experience on both ends I've had. As far as the Bill Cosby piece, I only showed that one time. The reaction was, we didn't really have much conversation about that piece. A lot of people reacted to the Dolezal installation, and that there was a lot of conversations regarding that because that I showed that in Austin, Texas, and there's a very large queer POC scene there too, and so there's a lot of questions regarding intersectionality and all sorts of things. So.
Well, I think that's what I love about your work, and it's a marker of time. And I feel like those are the artists that I'm always drawn to, right? As a curator, the artists that actually have something to say, and you were actually making some commentary, from lived experience and also cultural experience as a Black person. And I think so much we see this work that doesn't, we can look at this Bill Cosby piece and we know that time, right? We know that what Me Too looked like. And then as we show the Rachel Dolezal, which I want to tell, I don't know if people know this. I first was introduced to you through this work, right? And this was at Access, I believe, January 2020. So this is right before the world shut down. And I come into Access and I'm like, who is this person? Like, wait, first of all, in Sacramento, because that's a whole thing, right? And like artists actually going there. But I was like, oh my gosh, I have to. And I think I messaged you or something. And I was like, we got to meet. This is dope. This is amazing to have this conversation in a gallery setting, right? And this idea of like, you actually, had these dolls manufactured, right? And go through the process of, you painted. So as we show this work, I think it's a great segue into, this is the installation of the space, of the gallery space right now, right? And I would love to hear, going into this talk, right, I was like, we are not going to give Rachel any space, like, folks, if y'all don't know who Rachel is, which is interesting because, right, some people do come into the gallery and they're like, who is this lady? So I have to explain to them. But if you don't know who she is, Google her. There's tons of information out there. She has blocked both me and Beth. So we cannot tag her on Instagram, which I totally did. And I was like, hey, here goes this doll. Let's have a conversation, which I know you did years ago. But I would love to talk about this Dolezal work, if you can share a little some of it with us.
Yes, definitely. Well, it's interesting because the conversations we had earlier about how my experience with professors telling me that I'm not Black enough, right? I feel like really comes up with Rachel Dolezal. And because like I remember her mixed students and her Black students coming out and sharing their experience with her, kind of like humiliating them and like shaming them for their own experiences and kind of like taking all the breath out of the room or just like dismissing them. And so I was really like, aside from everything else that she did, which is just absurd, and the academic fraud and the TP, all that, I was just like really, I felt that pain and it resonated with me. In addition, when this was happening, I had like 20 different people send me this article about Rachel Dolezal, and they were like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I'm just like, first of all, how did y'all not? I feel like I'm a bloodhound for this sort of thing. I did not think that she was, and I did not. So I was really annoyed. And so.
But see, can we talk? Wait, can I ask you that there? Because when I seen her, before her parents came out, right, and we seen what she really looks like, right? Before that, I seen her and I was like, I mean, I know I have aunties that could, I mean, she had the braids, she had the wig, and I was like, I'm not going to question it yet, But it's interesting that you say, nope, I found it, I seen it.
Yeah, it was like not even a question for me, and I was just like, really, okay. Yeah, and then it was just a hot mess. And then I felt like it was such a mockery.
There are people that are like, nope, I sniffed it out. But I totally
no, for real.
Until her parents showed her kid picture, I'm like, lady, what?
Yeah.
The fuck are you doing to us? And that's the interesting thing, right? And people will come into the gallery and they'll say like, oh, I mean, is she hurting anybody? And that's the thing, like I mean, and I always tell people, I could never wake up and be transracial a white woman. So there's the privilege of her as a white woman being able to say, "Hey, I'm black today," or I'm now a black woman. That's not something, and I want to play. I always tell people about the Atlanta clip, right? That
Yes, that's a
segment and
good
how
one.
silly it is, and how it's not this. It's it's there's no she can do it as a white woman. I think that's the
Right.
conversation. And that, it was very performative when it first happened. And I always tell people too, like, she's still doing it. And I could have swore, I was like, no, she's going to take this shit off. She's going to see how hard it is for us, black women. And she's going to say, no,
Right.
but here we are, 2023, she's still
Right.
podcast.
She's like tripling down with it with the
Yeah.
podcast. And
Yeah.
the documentary on Netflix came out after I had made that work, so I did revisit that recently to watch the documentary. And what I took away from that was really nothing really changed on my opinion of her, but however, it was informative to know how her sons felt, or her brothers, her adoptive brothers. Like they
Mm,
both were like, "This is hurtful. Please stop doing this." And then, years later, she comes out with this podcast that launched earlier this year. And it's all about basically reinventing vocabulary terms that aren't in existence. Kind of like how she took the term transracial, which was a terminology to
mhm.
describe, adoptees to different cultures. She took that and changed the definition of it. And so, like, showing this work, I have had a lot of transracial adoptee friends be like, "This really hurts me on this level." Like her
Mm,
taking this term, and so this is very
yeah.
layered and
Yeah, and I think about, satire, right? And you created these coloring pages that are in the gallery for purchase with these two colors of crayons, which I love.
yes, because
Um,
that's just
and yeah, and there's so much, there's so much conversation around this, and it will always resonate, right? This is not new work for you, but I think you could show this in 2033 and it would still have this very
right.
cultural moment that resonates. There will be someone probably at the time that is claiming they're transracial, which is
Oh,
still
definitely.
happening. And I think I'll say too is I just commend your like the dedication to this. It is like the accessories here. We have the pick in the gallery. We have the
Yes.
accessories. Yes, you see that pick. Yes, yes, the Dolezal pick. I mean, just all these things, and I think that's why, obviously, as a curator, resonate with artists that really care and have this intention behind their work. And kind of going back to you just being research informed, right? And I think about the doll
Hmm.
test, which was this
Right.
this test performed by Dr. Kenneth Clark and Dr. Mamie Clark, where they basically, and again, another one of those things to look up, but these black kids, and then which doll is prettier, and the kids are pointing this, and this is an image by Gordon Parks pointing to the white doll. And I want to show, I mean, just some great work, kind of still thinking about, this Dolezal installation and how you created this this entire commercial. So I want to share this here so folks can see it.
The name of the doll is Dole Jolly Dolly. Have you heard of a Dole Jolly Dolly before?
No.
No, I haven't.
Not that I know of.
Which doll is the white doll? Which doll is the black doll?
This doll.
Which doll is the pretty doll?
This one.
They're both pretty.
Which doll is the ugly doll?
This one. None of them. They're beautiful in their own way.
Have you heard?
So I think I love that. I love that we end with they're beautiful in their own way. But also I was so, thinking back to the original doll test and all those black babies that didn't feel weren't proud, and they thought who was the bad doll, and it was the black doll, and there was all of this really horrible like self, I mean, it was. I weep when I still think about the doll test, and you can definitely, people can look it up and see the questions and see see that those videos. But there's this moment that you feel proud. There's this moment these black kids are like, this is the ugly one, this is the pretty one, and there's this. I think that it was important for you to show us that, because it's like, again, it's informed. You're asking a lot of the same questions that were asked in the original doll test, and I want to. One, talk about that commercial a little bit, because I know that was the doll was a prototype, but the actual, I mean, the kids, this was a real live. This was not scripted, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So I was really kind of nervous going into it, because I was keeping it true to the original test with the ages, and I asked them the same questions, and then added new questions too about like transracial identity and what does it mean to be trans Black. But every child, their parents were there, but every child was separated and told not to discuss with each other. We had a separate room where they were introduced to the doll. So it was like a blind reaction the first time that they were seeing it. And so I was like shocked and amazed. So yes, it was awesome. It was
Yeah.
very blind reaction though.
And I love that people they come in, they're like, oh, the kids are all right, and you got the little, little white boy, they're both pretty, there's this moment that that yes, they're both pretty, but I'm glad that
He was not going to get canceled that day.
Right.
He wasn't. He knew. He knew.
Right. Because those 1940 kids were not saying that. They're like,
Exactly.
Yeah, but that was, I mean, again, thinking about your work, and you're not going at this lightly, right? You think about the bag test and the doll test, and then in the gallery we talk about the pencil test, which a lot of people didn't. And I learned so much through working on this show with you, right? There's all these moments of things that I didn't know, and I feel like I'm pretty well informed on, especially on Black, American culture. But there's this. We think about the paper bag test and these moments of you kind of, and these are two, I share these on the on our talk, because thinking about the paper bag and really embodying this, right? So there's all these moments that people then can almost do their own test, which is really kind of unfortunate. But people have this moment, and I will say the photo on the right. Inside there's a mirror. So for anybody that can't come visit the exhibition, right, there's this mirror, and how you've installed it is we're looking across from each other. I can't see my reflection. You can see me, I can see you, right? And thinking about how the test works, right? And your professor is saying you're not, someone else kind of validating or invalidating you based on the color of your skin. So again, just bravo, and I think I'm going back to just this work, the paper bag test, and how you're capturing. I mean, it's really beautiful. I think that's the thing, but it's also very impacting, right? And I'm looking at these two, for example, and on the right is David Joseph, paper bag test David Joseph, right? Who, and I didn't know that story. So I think, again, thinking about profiling, and on the left is Eric Garner, who many of us know his story, but there's this moment of you're profiling these folks, right? And saying, and I even love how you have Richard Pryor and Red Fox, who went through their own racial identity issues in their time and through their artistry. So again, bravo. I think I just want to reiterate, I mean, here goes the gallery hours for folks that have not been to the to see the exhibition yet. And just again, to highlight, we're in a city that we normally don't get to see work like this, or artists that are thinking about this. So again, thank you for taking that, really thinking, well beyond, this idea of race and identity and intersection of them. So thank you.
Thank you for having it be seen and facilitating and curating the show, because otherwise, I mean, it was just in storage, and it was very depressing, because this work does need to be seen. And the way you highlighted the work and every little detail, it really elevated it. So I really am grateful.
Yeah, and it's funny, my curatorial practice, right? I'm always normally like, oh, I want new work. I want to show new work that no one's seen. And clearly I've seen this 3 years ago, but it will, like I said, it's always going to resonate. I'll probably my next gallery space somewhere else will probably, have some iteration. But I'm curious what it looks like for you. Are you going to continue on with the paperback test? Is this something that will always be a part of your practice? Um, and as we think about, what is next, do you imagine this is a part of your practice that you want to stay close to?
Yes, I think that that will be an ongoing series just because it allows me to connect with people and that I really admire. And I love highlighting people that are doing amazing things in the community. So like that's like what I can do. I can like I'm technically really skilled and I can do a portrait really well. And I love whenever I can show it to others and like talk about that person that is being portrayed and like the amazing things they're doing and spotlighting that. So that will most likely be ongoing because I just really enjoy doing portraiture and interviewing people. And so that part of the
Yes.
practice will always be in my work. And then I definitely am moving more into, so this is always going to be in the background, but I am moving more towards like installations and experimenting with like video and animation, like paper, like I'm really
Mm,
into antique toys. Like that's kind of like why I made Richard Dole's a topsy-turvy doll, the historical elements there. I'm really into
mhm.
just all sorts of old school animation. So I'm just like kind of moving into a different, um, like experimenting with different mediums. And then I just kind of have like a dark sense of humor, I suppose. So that will probably be underlying in my work. I am going to take a step
Yeah.
back from like, yeah,
I
I'm
love
not
it.
very dark sense
Yes.
of humor.
Yes.
It's not good. I
Yes.
was so scared to show the work again. But yeah, I think I'll take a step back from like the pop culture that like the ever changing pop culture stuff like I did whenever I did the Bill Cosby piece. Like I did a whole show and like I spent like, you know, a year and a half making this body of work, and my research was consuming trash media, and that really
Mm,
had a negative impact on my mental health. So
yeah,
and
it
then
did.
it's
Yeah.
always changing and you just, so like I am going to take a step back from that unless it makes sense to me. Unless I see it's like really relevant, like with the dolazole, that's something that is still relevant. And but yeah, that's kind of like where I'm moving towards. And I also, having moved here from Texas, just like 5 years ago, my it has expanded my mind so much because this is the first place I've lived where I can see people that look like me on a daily basis. This was not my experience in Texas. It took me like 3 months to get
Mm,
used to that, truly.
wow.
And so um, so that was like really interesting. That has affected my work in a way where in Texas, I mean, and then I know it's just like how this country is, right? Like depending on where I am geographically, my identity is
Mhm,
interpreted differently. So like I am kind of thinking about that, and like I'm
mhm.
really into this graphic novel illustrator. It's Incognegro. It's about this biracial Black identified man, and it's very satirical. So I am, yeah, I'm
Okay.
kind of like moving. I want to do more stuff that's research based with my own family lineage, and then also specifically talking
Mhm.
about like the racial ambiguity aspect, but in like a satirical way with these like historical toys. Like I'm such a sucker for historical toys. So I don't know. Like right now I have like the Oreo doll right here. She's
Oh,
banned.
yes, yes, yes,
She's
yes.
banned
Yeah.
because she's
I know when I
a
seen
small
that, I was like,
puppy.
wait, is this a real thing? And
I
yes.
want that outfit though.
Yeah, yeah.
But this wasn't like I've had this forever. Like it was banned. But so I had this before the Rachel Dolezal thing happened, and I just like the whole thing was just like make believe and pretend, and you can be whatever you want to be. That's what it really felt like to me. And then
Mm,
thinking about the topsy turvy doll and how you can just like change it on a whim, that being the historical
yeah.
element, and then like making it satirical with the commercial, but then also trying to give her some sort of humanity with asking the kids what they genuinely think and not influencing them. So that's
Mhm.
really felt like, yeah, I
Yeah,
want to
no.
do more work that's like an entire package of like illustration, commercial, installation, all that.
Yeah, you totally blew my mind when I didn't know about the topsy turvy doll. So right, so that was part of
Really?
us
Yeah.
that conversation between you and I. That's when I found out about the topsy turvy doll. But I love that you're thinking about these historical toys, right? And I want to show this one. If you can show us a little bit, I'll show it and then we can talk about it. Whew. I mean,
Yeah.
that one is heavy, right? But I still think
Hmm.
again going back to Carol Walker, right? And kind of using the image to kind of tell stories and a lot of its history. I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit about what we were looking at?
Yeah, so that piece was specific for a show. The curator had each artist read the same book, De La Tierra, From the Earth, and there's a movie about it as well. And so it is, we all had to make work in a response to that book. And that book is about these Mexican immigrant families that basically travel for work all over Texas, depending on the seasons, right? And sometimes they have to bring their children to work with them in these fields. And so there was a point in the book where the overseer white guy was like shooting his gun up, and he would shoot his gun up in the air to scare the children from being distracted and not working. And he didn't like whenever they would drink water and take water breaks and all this, right? And so he would always do this. And so there was one point in the book where he accidentally shot a kid, and he dies in like a horse trough or something like that. And so it was, every character in that scroll is a specific character from that book, and like what struggle they had, or what they were going through at the time. Like there was a character that had like their house burned down. So like I did it in a way that like I took the Fisher Price toy and I wanted to have the characters kind of look like Sesame Street, cartoonish at first, until you like are really looking at it, and then you're like seeing what is happening in this community, and has like the jingle with it too. And so like when I was reading that book, like these children would never have a toy like that, and just like all of these. So that was what that piece was about. And so like that was the first time that I really started, that was the first piece I did that was exploring paper and engineering in that way, because like it was very complicated. I had to find the exact weight of the paper for it to move. It was like all these little experimenting things. But.
And I love that, going back to your, this very technical ability that you're putting into your practice, not just with portraiture of you just, drawing, but actually like creating a toy. I'm gonna play that one more time. Now we have some context. It's really, really heavy. I wasn't familiar with that story. I'm gonna play this one more time.
Yeah, the scroll.
Yeah, I'm gonna play that next one that already started playing. I'll play that too. But yeah, that is heavy work, and I'm really excited for you to continue that, because I think there is this this conversation about innocence. You think about these toys, and with Barbie coming out, I think that's what you think. I'm thinking about the gallery and just how so many people resonate, but with that bright pink wall, going.
Yes.
16th Street. We just had Barbie, so there's just so many conversations happening in the gallery. There's another toy that I would love to share here. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Yeah,
that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah,
I'm like experimenting with I had a bunch of pop-up engineering books, so I was like kind of like learning how to make things move. I'm really inspired by this artist Lothar Megendorfer, antique pop-up bookmaker, and he was notorious for having like one pull tab and then like 10 things would move on a page, and it was just so beautifully illustrated. And so like, but if there was like some, like I love just the aesthetic of that and like the engineering behind it, but also making it have like an important conversation and concepts. So that's kind
of. I love that you say that, because I heard that name, that was first introduced to that name through Kara Walker, because Kara Walker has these pop-up books, and she does those kind of that same. So I didn't know that's and so much of it, I'm thinking about the cutouts and the paper and using, and how you all are using, and Kara Walker is one of my favorites. So I'm so excited that you're, thinking about that, which not very many artists are using kind of those materials to think about, especially with racial, thinking about like racial history, racialized history. So kind of circling back to Rachel, right? I want to show, just because I think we have this conversation about identity and who can, and the privilege, right? So I want to, it's not your work, but I still want to show this just for, I think I use it so much in this idea, like, this is crazy, you know, no one else can do this. So I'm going to share this here.
Earlier in our show, we talked about transitions and sexuality, but what about race? Our correspondent, Nathan Wilder, has the story.
Harrison looks from the outside to be your average teenager. He goes to school, plays video games, even listens to music in his room. But there's one difference.
I'm a 35-year-old white man.
Harrison, born Antoine Smalls, has transracial identity, identifying as Harrison Booth, a 35-year-old white man from Colorado.
And when did you know that you were a 35-year-old white man?
Well, I've always felt different. I go to the store, the movies, and just be thinking to myself, like, why am I not getting the respect I deserve? And then it just hit me. I'm white and 35. I just miss Colorado sometimes. You know, here I pretend the buildings are the old San Juan mountain range, but, you know, the job's just here.
And where do you work?
I'm a systems engineer for Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay.
That boy don't work. He go to school and that's it. One day he said, call me Harrison. I said, who's that? He said, me.
Do you believe that he is a white man?
I mean, he isn't. Shit, I'd love to wake up one day and say, hey, everybody, I'm Rihanna. But I ain't.
It's been pretty hard. My family just doesn't get it. You know, I try to get them to go out with me, go on walks, go to the farmer's market, chat with people, but yeah.
So why don't you think that they get it?
I don't think they get it because they don't realize that race is just a made-up thing. They grew up having labels, and me, I'm just not like that.
I see. So how do you embrace your identity?
I dress a certain way, Patagonia. I wear a thick brown leather belt. I like to envision myself after the surgery.
Hey, excuse me, what IPA do you have on tap? Hey, did you see Game of Thrones last night? Yeah.
So your surgery, that's later this year.
I mean, so ridiculous, right? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And I always refer people to that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds pretty ridiculous." But there's this conversation, right? Because we do have you've profiled the amazing Ebony Ava Harper, who was a trans woman, Black trans woman activist, right? And there is that conversation. Sometimes people, you know, very, very strange. I mean, yeah, that someone would question if someone could be transgendered. If someone could be transgender, can someone be transracial? And I always ask that question back to them very slowly, and then they'll answer the question, right? But I think about this work, which I guess it's a great time to say there is a 19 by 13 inch giclée print available. We are raffling it away. And you can scan these 3 if you wanted to put in $5 for one ticket, however many tickets. We'll put your name on it in the gallery, put it in the bucket, and we will raffle away a winner on the closing Sunday at the gallery. But I want to talk about this piece. One, I'm really, really excited, right? That I guess I haven't publicly announced this yet, but this work will be shown. And I want to say, just real quick for everyone, is when I invited you into the gallery, I was thinking about this in-between space that I'm doing, like showing work in between shows. And we totally didn't even think about a full realized exhibition, right? And I'm just like, hey, you have some great work in the paper bag test Ebony and the paper bag test Adrian. Let's just put it up in the gallery. And then through our conversation, we did this whole amazing exhibition. But I think there's this amazing opportunity came along, and it was acquired by Sacramento City College. So it will be installed at Sac City College. I'm not sure the location yet, but it will be on view for the students, right? And as we enter into an election year, I think you've just done amazing work with this piece. One, highlighting Ebony, right? Who is both of our dear friends, but also does amazing work with California Transcends. and is the fiercest, baddest woman I know, you know? So I think it was great for you to show her, and I'm so glad to have that work in the gallery.
Yes, I'm
I
so
also,
glad to be in a permanent space. Like I'm so happy about that. Thank
yes, yeah,
you.
and that was important too, and I'll totally share that and be transparent with folks. Like, you know, I think we both had this moment. Like, this work can't go back into storage. This is such important
Right?
work, and even the Adrian piece, right? And just how you constructed the bag, right? And actually making a paper bag and then painting the beautiful rendering that you've done, not just the technical, but, you know, I think about the glitter on Ebony's, you know, her eyeshadow. You know, there's just these moments that you really know how to draw. I think, you know, that's apparent, but how you're capturing kind of the essence of your sitter and asking them the questions that all shows in the work. Um, and because we talk about it being research informed, I really do want to. I mean, obviously, you have some folks that we all can recognize, but there's also some folks we don't know, right? There's some folks that just are special to you, or there's some folks that are doing some amazing work in the queer BIPOC scene in Austin. And I want to share um, a video here of the paperback, some of the kind of the questions, and you highlighting your sitter. I'm going to share that here with us.
I learned about the paper bag test probably around late middle school, early high school through different conversations with my mother about racism and the history of racism in America.
Ooh, the paper bag test very early on. So I love my adopted mother for this, who I call mom. She was very focused and determined to put Black authored sources in my hands, Black art, Black history. And there were really no secrets in our household. So it means that I learned about this early on. I would say sometime in elementary, maybe middle school.
I learned about the paper bag test. I learned about the paper bag test from my mother. My mother grew up in Selma, Alabama. Her father was white. Her mother was Black, and she had experienced quite a bit of, I guess, what is the word? Um, she had experienced quite a bit of, I guess, colorism growing up, and being from the South, and having had gone to a HBCU, she kind of let me understand just the different ways that people were and were not validated by the color of their skin.
Yeah, that's such important work that you're doing, because you could totally, right, just get capture a photo and right and render it on a paper bag, but there's something so much more deeper when we think about self identifying, and you're kind of creating this space for folks to kind of have kind of, sometimes it's dredging up these memories, right? And I love even you and I talking, right? And we think about our skin colors, right? And kind of these experiences that we've had, and it's just so well informed through the work. And I mean, if I can keep this show up through the end of the year, I totally would. It's up through next Sunday because I want people to see it. And I kind of get like, especially in Sacramento, if you're watching this in Sacramento, you have not visited. It's a space there where there are not very many spaces, gallery spaces or artists that are having this very intense conversation. And I think it makes us very vulnerable, right? As a curator and as an artist, to kind of bring people into the space and these ideas that we're thinking about. But it also is very empowering. And I think you are, the education that you're and how you're informing people. Hopefully, we see this go out and change the world, right? But those are the, how it works. We would never know that. But I do hear those stories of people leaving. There was actually this white family, and they sat and listened, watched the video, you know, and talked to their kids. I'm like, all right, you know, like if just that one, you know, family can kind of leave here and think differently about colorism or about privilege. you know, we've done the work, right? You've done the work through making it, and I've done it through showing it and kind of putting a face for it. But I want to transition because I don't know if people really know how an amazing muralist you are. So I think I have two photos here of some pretty amazing murals. And if you can just share, I know I talked in the intro about the CMS program, but if you can kind of share a little bit about this mural with us.
Yes. So this is located off of Northgate Boulevard in El Camino. And I actually live in the Garden Land neighborhood. So this is my community that I live in. And with that program that the city ran, I was hand selected as the lead artist based on my previous work. And these are the high school students. Yeah, so the mural itself features these local ballet folklorico students that were from the neighborhood. And I had first seen them perform at the Day of the Dead event. And I was just like so captivated by their dance, and like they were almost storytelling with each dress that they changed into. It symbolized something else. And then they were high school students, and they were just like the way they carried themselves was so graceful, and I was blown away. And so I reached out with the dance instructor. We did a photo shoot. It was beautiful. They gave me like 8 different outfit changes, and like the context behind where each dress, different colors represent different places in Mexico. Just very beautiful. So that's why I wanted since it was a community-based project where I'm working with the neighborhood, I did have a lot of backlash in the beginning because it was a year-long contract and there are community stakeholders involved. And so they did not like the fact that I was a Black woman. So like there was a lot of like pushback with that for like a good 6 months within that contract. It was really pretty disheartening and really messed up. And that's when I was like starting to learn more about like the racism dynamic here in California in a very naive way. Sorry for the noise in the background. But that was my first time really experiencing like, yeah, you're not in Texas anymore. Like they have like this is a different way that race operates here, or the political politics of race.
Yeah.
And so, but the whole point of that project specifically was to work with the neighborhood and the community and to research and get and so like the main feedback that I got, I did several community engagement events, but the main feedback I got was we want something that is a nod to the older generation, but inspires the future generation. And I thought that these dancers perfectly symbolize that, and everyone can relate to dance like throughout the different cultures, because that community is very diverse. And so that's what that's about.
Yeah, and still and I feel like some artists, sometimes we go from like painting, very commercial work, right? Or 2D work, and then going to murals, but your practice is it's still well informed. You're still meeting with them, you still are really learning and researching about the culture. So, and which is interesting. I feel like we can go on to a whole nother hour and we think about like the racial politics and dynamics of just in between POC folks, right? And I think that's something you experienced, which was unfortunate, but it still informs the work, right? You still, and I love that you say like those racial chameleon, I go back to that. But, there was this moment but you're representing the culture that you live in and that you're around, So we can totally go deep into that, but it's beautiful work. And then I like to say like it inspired, right, a whole project where they're kind of and this goes into my practice and kind of the transformation of space, right? And isn't something like really exciting happening there? Like they're thinking about like taco, this whole like inflation with
they're putting like there's already a space where like lots of taco trucks convene, and it's a hot spot Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. People go and they party, and it's great. But now there's gonna be like actual permanent seating. They're gonna have a whole taco plaza, an installation, lights, music, a stage. It's really beautiful because whenever I first started that project, like that wall was getting tagged 3 times a week. And since I was out there like every day for 6 months painting it, I got to know all of my neighbors really quickly, right? Because it's on the side of a liquor store, first of all. So I'm really knowing all my neighbors real quick. And so like there were some people that even like tagged the wall previously, and they came to the community paint day and like helped, paint a butterfly or whatever. So I still see them on a regular basis. So it's really special. Everyone that came and helped out with that.
Yeah, and I mean, and we can also talk about I mean, our mural, you know, we have them light up walls and the mural festivals and all these things in our city. And I feel like so many, like I go in and I'm like, I'm not connecting with these murals, right? And I think of like Shona McDaniels did a seat at the table on 19th Street, right in the Smud 19th, I think at O, which is amazing. And I saw that and I actually went up to it and I was like, whoa, like, you know, we're the same skin color. And then I think about this work that you've done. And I'm like, gosh, that resonates. That's a mural for me. Like, that's the folks that are in the community. That's what we want to see at the liquor store, right? You know, you leave, you get your stuff on Friday night and you see your folks, you see your people. And even as a Black person seeing this is not my culture, but I've grown up in it. My friends, you know, have done, like, there's this moment that I feel proud. You know, which is great for Northgate. I think those are those areas like Northgate, South Sac that we need to have that pride in our surroundings.
Yes, I'm
There's
very
another
proud
one.
of that piece.
Yeah, and there's another one here that is a temporary mural that is no longer here, but also like this again, thinking about research, right? And how you're profiling folks that a lot of us don't know. And I would love to I know there's some amazing folks featured in here, but if you can just share the image on the left that is in the orange. I don't have a closer picture, but
That
I would
is
love to,
Betty
just as
Reed
we think about
Soskin.
profile, right? I would love for people to know. I did not know who she was until I seen this work that you did. So yeah, can you share us a little bit about who this is?
Yes, definitely. That is Betty Reed Soskin, and she is the oldest park ranger. I believe she just had a birthday last month, and don't quote me. I want to say she turned like 99 or something. It was something
Happy
like that.
birthday.
Yeah, sprinkle,
Yes.
sprinkle. She did
Yes.
that. Yes, like she just retired, but she was like the oldest Black park ranger. And so California Natural Resource Agency commissioned me for this mural, and they selected every portrait that is represented there except for I selected the one in green. And but yes, Betty Reed Soskin, her granddaughter is making a documentary movie right now currently about her life, and so they're featuring this mural in it, so that's really exciting. It's like a tribute to her grandmother.
And just because I think naming folks are important, could you name kind of left to right who these people are? Might be hard to see, but I want people to at least have those names.
The yellow square is the Earthwalker, and his name is.
Or if you just Earthwalker, we can look that up. Yes,
Earthwalker. Yes. The green one, that is the Israel Family Farm here. I was really inspired by that. I love the work that he does in community urban gardening. So I wanted to feature him because, like, everyone that they selected, I didn't have a say in, and I didn't think that not every person was necessarily like relevant or contemporary to, like, there's so many people doing amazing things in our community here or in Northern California. And so, like, I was like, I really, even though it was like an extra portrait that I had to do on my end, I did push for it because I'm just like, we're in Sacramento and we have like amazing people doing amazing things here. So that's why I chose him. So like, that's exactly.
Profile,
and so then, yeah, there it is. And so I was like, y'all need to, and so I still had to do an extra portrait, but it was worth it. And then the last portrait, the purple one, oh my gosh, y'all. She was like the first Black millionaire. Don't you? So thank you, because like,
and that was
totally I don't want to do it.
Don't do it.
I don't want to quote me wrong. They made me like, no. Let me stop.
Yeah. No, but I think it's great. Going back to Israel, I think that's important because this is located in downtown Sacramento, where the Israels are. Right, the Israels are, I think, at Oak Park and in Sacramento. And I think there's this moment like that we are really thinking about this, this land and the impact that the Israels had, which just on me personally on the work that they do. We don't have to talk about it, but I just want people to see kind of some more work that you've done. I think your portraits, again, thinking about the portraiture, is incredible. I know this was a card deck that you created. So as we wrap up, I want to first ask all the viewers that are watching, if you have any comments, if you're watching with us live, please feel free to put them in the comments now. I will pick a few and ask maybe a brief Q&A. And I want to just share back gallery hours. I hope that this talk has really motivated and inspired some folks to come by the gallery if you're in Sacramento. We have 3 more days of the show being up, and also by appointment. Really, again, I can't say enough that this show is how important the show is. And if you want to enter a raffle for the paperback Test Ebony, which is an amazing print, here goes some options, or come into the gallery any of these days and purchase your ticket in person. And before I think we leave, Beth, we talked about like profile, right? And like talking about the folks, this legacy, and this how you highlight folks that we know and folks we don't know. I wanted to share this photo, which I think is so amazing and so badass. But I want you to share a bit about this lady that we see up here.
Yes, this
And
is my
also specifically
grandmother.
the name, I think, right? I love to learn. I think I learned that through the show of how the naming in your family has gone.
Yes. Yes, this is my granny. Her name was Betty Jean Dodd, and she was in several of the other black and white photos of my family back in Mississippi. And yes, there she is again. That's the portrait on the left. That's her. I'm named after her, so like that's really special to me. And I also have her signature tattooed on me. She would always sign her cards with "I am." I never understood that growing up until I got older after she passed. And like, I really feel like that was a beautiful gift that she gave me because, she had my mom when she was 14 years old in like Kosciuszko, Mississippi. And so that was, she went through a lot of challenges. She was a single parent in Chicago. And then later in her life, she started her own business, which was the limousine company, Conscious Choice. And, she's been passed for a decade now, and they still hold her seat at the church, like she was very spiritual. She went back to college in her later years, and started learning violin with a bunch of kids. She was just very motivated and inspiring. And so I am named after her, and she was named after her grandmother, whose name was Elizabeth. So Beth is a family name on my mom's side. And so I love that. I love her. She was the one that taught me how to color in the lines.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, that's special. I feel like these talks, there's this moment of like, what informs how we experience the world and our identity. And I think it sounds like just me hearing the stories of her, I want to make sure that she has some space here. One for that business card, because oh yeah, Granny was doing it back then.
Yes.
Then Conscious Choice in the design. And I'm sure that's a time where there's not very many women driving limos, I imagine, right? Like, so this independence. And I'm
she
glad
always had like the most updated, tricked out, and it always had to be white. It always had to be a white limo.
Okay.
And she had like horror stories of Bobby Brown. I'm just gonna throw it out here. He stole her little champagne glasses. I'm just saying. Throw him under the bus before we end Yeah. What you doing?
Yeah, well, that is so special. And I'll just tell you that just us getting to know, I mean, we have like our friendship is, once we do the show, we're like attached at the hip now, right? But this was so important to me. And just one as like Black girls, right? Like having this experience and living in a city where sometimes we don't see each other. I think we see us, right? And your Eric Garner paperback test, Eric Garner was in the first show, When We See Us. And I just wanted to, I see you, and I want everyone else to see you and see what you do, not only for this city, but for Black folks, and this moment that your work will, I think, live on way beyond you, and if hopefully, I feel like if that, for most artists, you want that to experience that, and your work already has this place, in our culture, so I thank you for that.
Thank you.
I think my last question is, what's next? Like,
next?
where are we? I mean, November 5th, the show ends. But I'm so excited to hear about the toys and all these things brewing. But yeah, it's like, what's next? And I know we're at your studio now. Your studio's downtown Sacramento, so you're not going anywhere. I know you're from Austin, but you're here with us in Sacramento.
Definitely.
So yes, what's next for you?
What's next? Definitely moving more towards like the movable animation, paper engineering toys and installations, like working with you on this show. Like we've had some obstacles and we were able to just like create these wonderful installations that are really powerful and moving. And I've learned so much in that way. And I love, so like I'm focusing more on video and installation, and I will continue doing more like antique toy work. However, but I want to focus more on like my perspective being racially ambiguous, because I didn't really have that so much in Texas until I moved here. And so like for the last several years, I've just been like accumulating my own notes and dreams, ideas and stuff like that in relation to that. So I think I'm like ready to start visually representing it, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we're ready for it. I can't wait. Yes. All right. Well, thank you. Please again come join us in the gallery this Wednesday for Wind Down Wednesday. We will have some rosé. I think we might do one last pink. Do we need to do one last like Wednesday or Friday for the opening? We all wore pink, and it was a vibe for sure. But please come and join us at the gallery. This is one of those shows. I feel like all my shows, right? I never want to see them end. This is the show that I feel like I get a little emotional, like taking down that, that installation. These are like moments that we just had such a great time in the gallery, right? Until like 5 a.m. And special shout out to Julian Sandpaper, to Theo Kadama.
Julian.
Yes, yeah. Shout out to all those folks. But thank you again for joining me. This informs my practice so much as a curator and how I engage and kind of interact and intersect with artists. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for your emotional labor. Thank you for your physical labor. Because girl, that paper bag, that big paper bag, y'all was getting it in. And it's just, so much of this work is so special to me that I'll hold on, not just with my Rachel Dolezal pick, but like so many things, right, that are so special that people, and I always love to have shows that people remember. So I feel like this is definitely a show that everyone's going to remember. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
love you.
Thank you for making it happen.
And let's do it again soon.
Yes, I love you too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for joining us. It was a little over an hour, but we couldn't stop. You're really into the conversation that Beth and I have had for so long in the gallery before we even thought about this show. And I definitely want to give a special thanks to these folks on this screen, because this project space is only possible with the support of these folks that form the foundation of my vision. The commitment echoes loudly through the walls in the gallery, igniting creativity and shaping the cultural landscape. So I really want to extend my deepest gratitude to the friends of the project space, which are here. And if you are interested in becoming a friend of the project space, because I will say that this it is pricey, right? It costs money to do this work. So if you want to support, if you want to be a friend, I would be forever grateful. And again, I just want to share one last time the gallery hours. And I'm going to end with, because Beth is so special, and I think so much of her work is, we think about even with kids, right? And think about her mural and her practice. I want to share a video of her 2019 mural camp at Verge Center for the Arts, and how her practice extends way beyond her, and how she's kind of inspiring a whole generation of muralists in our city.
Hey, I'm Desmond Barbell, and my mural is on Black Lives Matter. And what inspired me about what I did is everyone's been so interested about Black Lives Matter, and how it just gets everyone angry, how like people will just get pulled up for no reason, get shot for no reason. So I inspired me to do that.
Mine is part of like an anti-war or anti-violence
bunch of explosions in the war zone and showing kind of the consequences of the bad stuff that will happen. And then right in the middle, this isn't finished yet, but it says stop. My name is Mark, and my mural is about anti-violence. I was inspired by him. I was gonna do something about all the trash and straws and everything in the ocean, but he was sitting alone by himself, so I went over to go sit by him, and we started talking. He said he wanted to do something about anti-violence, so I was like, okay, so we started doing a mural, and the mural started to look sick.
Thank you, Beth. We love you. The future feels all right with these little ones. Just a reminder that profile is on view at Faith J. McKinney Project Space through November 5th. Please come join us and see this amazing work. Thank you all for joining me tonight for another Artist Talk. I will see you soon.